So, you want to buy a house in the UK. It's an awesome goal, right? But listen, this is a high-stakes game. One tiny mistake, and it can cost you a fortune. So, how do you make sure that doesn't happen to you?
You know, for a lot of people outside the UK, buying property here is the dream. You've got the history, the culture. It feels like a really stable investment, and it is exciting. But that excitement, it can make you miss some pretty huge, and I mean really expensive risks.
So just how expensive are we talking? Well, get this. A single, simple mistake could set you back about £25,000. And that's a conservative estimate. That is a ton of money to lose on something you could have easily avoided, right? Okay, so today we're going to break down the 5 biggest mistakes that foreign investors make when buying property in the UK. And more importantly, we'll talk about how you can avoid them. Think of this as your playbook for protecting your cash and making a really solid investment right from day one.
All right, let's dive into mistake number 1. And it's all about inspecting the property and the place. Because what you see, well, it's definitely not always what you get. This is where 2 of the biggest tripwires are, right at the very beginning.
Okay, so you're scrolling through listings and you see this place. It's 100 years old, it's got that classic British charm. It looks perfect, doesn't it? But here's the thing about the UK. A lot of the houses are old, and that charm, it can be hiding some seriously expensive secrets.
So, what could be lurking behind those pretty walls? I'm talking about things like subsidence, that's where the actual ground under the house is shifting. We're talking about damp and mold, dodgy old wiring, and the really scary stuff like asbestos or even the risk of the roof caving in. Fixing any of these could literally cost you a fortune.
So how do you protect yourself? It's simple. You absolutely, positively cannot skip a professional property survey. And listen, the valuation your mortgage lender does, that's not a survey. For most places, you'll want a level 2 homebuyer survey. But for an older house like that one we saw, you need a full-blown level 3 building survey. This isn't just a report. It's your secret weapon. It finds all the problems and gives you the power to go back and negotiate a better price.
All right, so the house itself seems okay, but what about the neighborhood? This is the second big mistake people make. They only see it once. You pop by on a Tuesday morning and it's quiet, it's peaceful, seems perfect. But what's it like on a Friday night? Is that quiet street suddenly the noisy, traffic-choked home to a rowdy pub? The whole vibe could be completely different, maybe even a little unsafe. This is exactly why you have to visit the place multiple times. I mean, go in the morning, go in the evening, go on a weekday, and then go back on a weekend. It's the only way you're going to get a real feel for what you're actually buying into.
Okay, let's move on to the second major area of mistakes. And this one is a huge one for foreign investors. It's all about the real purchase price. Because I'm telling you, the price you see on the advert is nowhere near the final bill. There are some serious hidden tax burdens. So it's so easy to just focus on that main purchase price, right? But that's just one slice of the pie. The biggest chunk of extra cash you're going to have to find is for something called stamp duty. And for buyers from outside the UK, it gets even more expensive with some pretty hefty surcharges. And you won't believe how fast this adds up. First, if you already own a property anywhere else in the world, boom, that's an extra 3%. Then, because you're not a UK resident, boom, another 2%. So right off the bat, you're looking at an extra 5% on top of the purchase price. And that's before we even talk about the regular stamp duty. So what does that actually look like? Well, on a £500,000 property, that's an extra £25,000 just in surcharges. You've got to do this math before you make an offer. If you don't, you are in for a seriously nasty surprise when the bill comes.
Okay, on to our third section. And honestly, this might be the single most important thing you need to understand about UK property law. It's a concept that trips up even seasoned investors. I'm talking about the difference between freehold and leasehold.
So what's the deal? Think of it like this. Freehold is simple. You buy the house, you buy the land it's on. It's yours, forever, full stop. But leasehold, that's totally different. With a leasehold, you're basically just buying a long-term rental agreement for the building itself. You don't own the land. You're a tenant, and you have a landlord, called a freeholder.
And being a tenant comes with a bunch of strings attached. You've got annual ground rent payments, you've got service charges for things like maintaining the building, and those can skyrocket. And here's the real kicker. If that lease drops below 80 years, the value of your property can seriously tank. And trying to extend the lease, that can cost you tens of thousands.
So look, a lot of apartments in the UK are leasehold, and that's just how it is. But you have to go into it with your eyes wide open. You need to know exactly how long the lease is and what all the charges are. But the bottom line, if you have a choice, Freehold is always, always the better, safer bet.
Okay, so we talked about the building, the money, and the legal stuff. But who's the person that guides you through this whole maze? That brings us to mistake number 4, picking the wrong solicitor. This is your lawyer, and they are your most important partner in this whole deal.
Honestly, the legal side of buying property in the UK is a jungle. And if you pick a solicitor who doesn't know what they're doing or who just doesn't get back to you, it can be an absolute nightmare. We're talking months of delays, your mortgage offer expiring, the whole deal can just fall apart and you're out thousands of pounds in fees.
So, here's your checklist for finding a great solicitor. First, they have to specialize in property law. It's called conveyancing. Second, they need to be good with email and digital stuff, especially since you're overseas. Third, they have to be a great communicator. And finally, and this is crucial, make sure they have experience with leaseholds and have worked with foreign investors before. You don't want to be there first.
All right, let's pull all this together and talk about your path forward. We've gone through the big ones, right? The physical property, the hidden taxes, those tricky legal structures, and getting the right professional help. A successful purchase isn't about getting lucky. It's about turning all that risk into a secure asset through smart prep.
Look, by facing these 5 things head on, getting that survey, really checking out the neighborhood, doing the math on the taxes, understanding freehold versus leasehold, and hiring a top-notch solicitor, you stop being just another hopeful buyer. You become a smart, prepared investor. You're doing more than just buying a house. You're protecting your money and making a secure investment for the future.
Buying property in the UK, it takes some patience, for sure. It takes research, and it takes the right team. But now you know the pitfalls. You know what to watch out for. So really, the only question left is, now that you know all this, are you ready to go out there and invest wisely?